All right, welcome everybody to this week's edition of WeAreSC.com's Arledge's 10 Questions, the third most popular game show in the history of YouTube. I don't know what the other two are. I was going to say Jeopardy, and Jeopardy probably beats us, I would think. Wheel of Fortune probably beats us. Maybe
I
the
thought you
price.
were going to say in the history of Arledge game shows, honestly.
I think it's the most popular in the history of Arledge game shows. I don't know that that's saying much. I do think The Price is Right beats us. So this is probably the fourth most popular game show. But this is the one we've got. If you want the others, you can go watch them somewhere else. This is the one we've got. We're going to talk about a lot of UCLA stuff today because we have to, because the Bruins are coming up. Big week, guys. It's rivalry week, and so I really want to see both of you turn in a top-notch performance. I don't know that both of you have been on your game in a week in a long time. We've had, look, both of you have had your weeks, but where you both show up and bring your A games, I don't know that that's happened since LSU. So we'll see if you've got it in you this week. I'm trying to be positive because Eric said I'm too negative. I'm trying to be positive. I think you guys will be better this week. I don't know. Are you ready to jump into it?
Yeah, always.
Okay. Give me the three biggest Bruin villains of all time. Mark Holken, why don't you start us off?
No, Eric said he's ready. He's ready to go.
Oh, you want him to go first?
You can go first today.
Holken,
I'm deferring to the second half.
That's fair. Mark Holken won the toss. He's going to defer. So, Eric, go ahead. Give me the three biggest Bruin villains of all time.
It's a passive start from Mark, not very point getty, in my opinion. All right.
It's aggressive. It's not aggressive at all.
Yeah. Three biggest villains. I'm already probably gonna punt on this because I got four names, but there's a tie in there. So at three, Ed Kazarian.
Yep. Towel waiver for those of you who don't know.
The towel waiver. Yep. At two, I've got a tie because they're very sort of familiar between Anthony Barr and Eric McNeil. So McNeil had the interception in 2006, did, from what I can tell, not a single thing the rest of his UCLA career, except for end potential national championship hopes for USC in that 2006 game. McNeil tied with Anthony Barr. Anthony Barr, the hit on everybody's favorite, Matt Barkley, celebrated it quite a bit. Probably the thing, a better career than McNeil at UCLA and more of a problem for USC. But both those guys were on teams that just got rolled by USC as well. So not number one for either of them, although very specific moments that put them on my list. And then one is Cade McNown, which could have been 1, 2, and 3 probably.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously a very solid choice. Really a solid all-around answer, other than the fact that you gave us four names instead of three. But let's see what Mark Holken has to say. Give me your three, Mark.
Well, the reason why I wanted Eric to go first was to see where he was on my list, and he was right. Cade McNown could be 1, 2, and 3. Cade McNown is the worst of the worst. Number one, he didn't lose to USC. Two, he puked in front of USC, which, whatever. Eric McNeil, without a doubt. I didn't know who he was before the game. I've never heard of him since that game. But that play sucked, period. And it's funny that he gave him kind of an honorable mention, but yeah, Ed Kazarian. That dude, I hate it. Yeah. He's what made USC start waving towels. USC saw what was going on over there and said, we're going to try this.
That's not something you copy. It's not.
But it's what happened.
I know it did.
I don't remember USC waving towels before that.
Look, I'm still furious about sometimes it's towels, sometimes it's just dance moves. I don't understand it. I find it infuriating. I was sitting there Saturday and I watched it just before kickoff, and you have all these guys with these synchronized dance moves, and it just made me mad. I always sit up high so I can see the whole field. If not, I was tempted to run down the stairs and do something about it, but whatever. Okay, those are all good choices. I like them all. I think Terry Donahue might deserve a place. Not that Terry was necessarily a bad guy, but Terry, Terry essentially went about 500 against USC in his career and had some and some of the ugliest USC UCLA games I ever witnessed were him. And walk on quarterback Barnes and JJ Stokes. I mean, I think Barnes probably deserves a place in the top 3, although I liked all those names that you guys gave.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Bob Toledo.
Well, no, but here's the thing, though. For a while, it looked like Toledo might do something with UCLA, and then his program just utterly collapsed in a quivering pool of blue mess when Pete Carroll came around. So I actually don't have hard feelings for him at all. Like, Rick Neuheisel. I've always found it fun to make fun of Rick Neuheisel, but how angry at Rick Neuheisel can I be? I mean, he's not a villain. He was a baby seal that got clubbed all the time. You both get a point. I liked both your answers. I don't think either one stood out. I thought it was questionable of Mark to defer the way he did. I didn't think it was aggressive enough, but he still gets a tie on the question. So maybe it was the right strategy. I don't know. All right, here we go. You do have to answer this one first, though, Mark. Give me your favorite ever USC UCLA game.
There's a lot of them, but I'm going to say consistent. 2001, Pete Carroll's first year, 27-0. Antoine Simmons pick 6 through the 5-hole. And there seems to be a little bit of kismet going on. 2001, USC, when they played UCLA, they were 5-5. Guess what their record is this year? They got that 6th win. They became bowl eligible. I think it's going to have that same feeling after this game. I don't know if we'll get the pick 6, but I don't think we're going to get a shutout. It'll be close, but I do think USC wins this game. Yeah, 2001.
That was a fantastic game, and I don't know if we'll get the pick 6. That might happen. I don't think we're going to get the level of quarterback pressure that we got in that one, because the Cody and Patterson and Udeze were just all over the UCLA quarterback. Corey Poss, I think. I can't remember. Whoever it was, he was getting destroyed all game, just about every snap. That was a lot of fun to watch. Great game. Good answer. Eric McKinney, can you beat it?
I mean, I got to go somewhere else, right? That would be the one for me. That was my freshman year at USC. They gave out, when you got tickets for it, you had to hand in your ticket stub, and they gave you just a random ticket in groups of 2 or 4 or 1 or whatever. So I sat row 2, where the student section used to be, to watch that one. That was the right move. So I love. Well, if I have to go somewhere else, I love a close game. I love a 1.2 point win, something where both teams really go at it. So I'm gonna go 2011. I'm gonna go 50-0 USC over UCLA, and every bit of that one to Marquise Lee and Robert Woods and finishing off the shutout and all of that. Those are enjoyable. The games like that are enjoyable too.
Yeah, 50-0 was fun. I'm gonna concede that. I think that there are obviously a lot of great ones. I think there was a 4-year period where 3 of the best games of all time were played. 87, 88, and 90 were all amazing.
Yeah.
The first 2, Rodney Peete, Troy Aikman, USC comes back from the deficit. Rodney Peete makes a huge play at the end of the half to keep it 10-0. Affolter juggles the ball with the winning catch. Incredible game, an upset game. 88, you have the measles game. Rodney Peete and USC set themselves up for 1 versus 2 clash. In 1990, a 45-42, Johnny Morton catch it at the end of the game from Todd Maridovich. Those were 3 incredible games. Now, the 89 game right there in the middle of all that was a freaking disaster, where a terrible UCLA team finds a tie and almost kicks a winning field goal. So you got to throw that out a little bit. But all 3 of those games were amazing. And I think I would pick 87, but I feel good about both answers. I like Mark's better. It was more meaningful. 2-1, Mark Culkin. All right, here's one. and we're going to have to do it. I don't want to do it. It's not my fault that it comes up here, even though I wrote the question. Question number 3, what's the worst USC UCLA game ever? And you can't say 13-9. You can't. I'm just going to take that one off limits. I'm just going to make an executive decision. Everybody knows that one was horrific. I'm just taking
it. It is that one. It is that one. So having to pivot in the vein of 50-0, the 2021 game, and USC was playing for absolutely nothing in that one. It was a disaster of a year. To watch UCLA run up 62 points, to watch Dorian Thompson-Robinson signing merchandise mid-game at the Coliseum, absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. Worse than all right, maybe not worse than like a gut punch, close game late, but oh my gosh, that is up there watching UCLA do that.
Yeah, that was horrible. I'm going to concede it. Mark, I know your answer was going to be 13-9. Everybody's answer was going to be 13-9. So don't even complain about it. Just give me another one. You've watched enough USC UCLA games. There are other bad memories knocking around in that noggin of yours. What is it?
Can I say all of them? I know that's not an acceptable answer, but
that's not a great answer. I mean, it probably won't get you a point. You can say it.
Well, you took away 13-9. Eric just took my answer. So I'm scrambling right now in the back of my brain to come up. I'm just going to go with last year's game. The fact that USC did not show up to play against their crosstown rival, it just grinds me. I cannot tell you how much that burns me inside. And at the end of the game, when your team leader doesn't show up to talk to the media about it, that tells me you didn't care, and you didn't care about your team. And we're going to find out. I know I'm being hyperbolic with that statement, because I know Caleb's coming back to be honored during the USC Notre Dame game. But last year, losing to UCLA sucks every single time. I don't care if it's a blowout, if it's a close game. But when you lose because you didn't show up and you didn't care, meet me at the bike racks. Let's talk about it.
Mark Culkin's going to beat somebody up. I love it. I love that fire, Mark. I hope we see some fire from the Trojans like that. There are a couple that stand out to me. You had the one I can't remember if it was 93 or 94, the 27-21 game. Rob Johnson throws 2 long passes to take USC down to the 2-yard line. And then throws it right into the chest of a UCLA guy where he could just have thrown the ball away. They still had. That one hurt. But my worst, I think, was 86. That was the first USC UCLA game I attended in person. It was at the Rose Bowl. And UCLA's up 30-0 at the half. Gaston Green had a gigantic game. UCLA threw a ridiculous Hail Mary at the end of the half. That one was bad. That was really bad. All right, nobody's going to get a point. And the reason is because it's a terrible question. I shouldn't have asked it because it just brings up a bunch of bad memories. So nobody gets a point, but I lose one. Okay. How's this recruiting class going to close out? Mark, what do you think?
So I think it was last week. I actually wrote that I didn't think they were going to finish with a top 15 class, probably just outside of it. If USC can beat UCLA and knock Notre Dame out of the playoff chase, I think there's a chance they can slide into that top 15. If they get Thanos, if they can somehow or another get Jakeem Stewart to jump on board, now I'm thinking, all right, maybe top 10. I'm thinking they're going to end up 12 to 13.
If we got him, that would help whatever the final ranking is. That's for.
I don't care what the final number is, right? Just give me Jakeem Stewart.
And I know right now everybody's saying that's ridiculous. They're not going to get him. He's going to go to LSU or Ohio State or Oregon. And maybe he will. Probably he will. I get it. But USC seems to be they seem to be confident, interestingly enough. And I would point out that while USC doesn't have the budget to compete with Oregon and Ohio State overall in NIL, they have enough they could go after one big dude. I know that.
Hotter seat, Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley right now.
That's a good question. It's
Sorry,
a good question.
I take it down that rabbit hole, but that's who USC is dealing with is LSU for him.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I would say Brian Kelly because I think LSU. There are a lot more LSU fans. One who care deeply than there are USC fans who care deeply. That's just the truth. And because LSU fans are probably going to get drunk on moonshine and do something crazy. So I think he's in more trouble. McKinney, what do you think? How's this recruiting class going to close out? We're going to finish strong?
I think so. I think Longstreet is a good recruiter, certainly a better recruiter than what Julian Lewis was willing to do. And I don't know if he will be responsible for, bringing a ton of guys in, but I think that especially with the offensive guys knowing, all right, that's the guy I can I can see, what he can do. I can see that film. I know that there's going to be a quarterback there. So I think he helps in a big way. I think that you're right about Jakeem Stewart. Not that USC is going to get him, but that a lot of fan bases have seen USC miss and miss and miss and miss on big guys. And specifically in this class, you had those two very early, huge commitments from defensive linemen. And then you saw how the season played out, and you saw that they lost them, and they're not going to go get those guys from across the country. And a lot of that too is based on what did your NIL look like last class, a couple classes ago. It's different. It's different now. And like you said, if you want to go all in on one or two guys, I think USC can do that in this class. And I think they've got the potential to surprise a lot of people with somebody like that. I still think they end up, I think Mark's number's probably right, 12, 11, 12, something like that. They're not going to be able to pile guys up here at the end. Like Florida all of a sudden is tossing money out everywhere, and you're going to get some of that. Auburn's kind of involved in everybody. Colorado has a chance to make a big splash at the end, but it's not. I should say, you still have that Notre Dame game that I think can send this in different ways. You're going to get a lot of guys there at that game. And does one game win or lose absolutely make a decision for a lot of guys? No. But that early signing period has crept up so close now to that game where you can get maybe some emotional reactions on that lock guys in. You used to have weeks still to sort of build off that and recruit off that. Now you're kind of flipping around pretty quickly. So I think it can go higher based off a win on that game than it would drop lower based off if you lose that game. So I think the class is going to be really good. I think you got a couple offensive linemen, you got a couple defensive linemen. The wide receiver class, if you keep all those guys, is phenomenal. We talked about the quarterback. There's some really talented running backs. Defensively, especially kind of linebacker, edge guys, and kind of athletes in space, I think is good. You've got to add a couple guys on both lines, I think, still going forward.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I like your positivity, Eric. I'm going to give you a point. It's 2-2. Okay. Look, historically, guys, records and rankings mean little in the USC UCLA game. It's the ultimate throw the records out game. Is that still true? Is that still true these days in the USC UCLA game, or is it a different deal now? What do you think, Eric?
I think USC's shown that you can throw the records out in any game, and you don't really know how they're going to play or what they're going to do. I do. So they're taping up the statues, right? It looks like what it has looked like before. I'm curious what the players say this week. But absolutely the last 2 years when Lincoln Riley has been here, when we've talked to players before the UCLA game, there is a lot of, I don't really know. We're just gonna play, right? There's not a lot of in-depth understanding of this thing. And I think you're right. And it's changed a little bit because they're not going after the same guys anymore. You used to have 12 guys at this game, where again, one win doesn't mean you're going here or you're going there. But there was a ton of overlap in guys that you were recruiting and coming from that same pool. And it just doesn't feel like that anymore based on the players both teams are chasing. So For fans, it's going to mean a lot. I don't have the sense that USC, especially this team, is going to sleepwalk through this game. Like they understand that they've got to win one of these to play another one. So I think they're going to show up. But no, I think the rivalries, it's definitely, and there's evidence to it. It's felt different the last couple of years. Both those games, both how this USC team last year showed up against both those teams. Yeah, it did not feel like it had felt before.
Mark?
No, it in theory it still holds true, but you have to sometimes you kind of have to generate that energy as well. And I think that's what Eric was touching on right there. How much emphasis does Lincoln Riley put on these games? Coach Speak, yeah, every game means the same. It's still a rivalry game. You still going to make sure your team hates the guys in the other locker room. And I just don't know if there's that animosity there anymore. I'm old enough to remember that UCLA's roster were the guys that USC didn't want to go after in Southern California. And then it kind of transitioned to, all right, UCLA is going to take some guys that USC can't fit on their roster anymore. And now it's like they don't really recruit against each other anymore. So it goes back to my point earlier that I don't know if people really understand what the USC-UCLA rivalry means when 40 to 50% of your roster is coming from across the country. They didn't grow up with it. They don't have that Thanksgiving table where half the table is, wearing sissy blue and the other half is wearing that manly cardinal and gold. It's different, but it's still there. It's different. And I don't know how you get back to, everybody looking forward to it, the fans showing up, the teams meeting at midfield, pretending like they're going to fight each other, coaches calling a timeout with 30 seconds left, knowing they're not going to win the game. It needs to be, I don't know, maybe it needs to be artificially generated. Somebody needs to go out there and start something to kind of bring back that old school vibe again.
Kyle Ford's got to spend all week just making up stories about what UCLA was saying about him last year.
Yeah, that would have. Well, I mean, look, he's not the only guy that was on that UCLA roster last year. So USC has a few people from that farm team of theirs. That's all true. I mean, I don't know who UCLA recruits against anymore, to be honest. I ever since Chip Kelly got there, it hasn't been entirely clear to me that they recruit at all. I mean, maybe they're recruiting to get somebody, but I don't know who it is. In the old days, almost all of the great Southern California players stayed home, and they almost always went to one of these two schools. Now you have so many Southern California kids going to other places, going to the SEC, going to Oregon, wherever it is. And USC recruiting so many guys from other states that it has changed things. These guys all used to know each other. They were, and this is before all of the blue chip players in Southern California played at 3 high schools too, right? Where these guys knew each other, they played against each other in high school, and there was already a built-in rivalry between these guys before the game started. So that is different, and I do think it changes. The reason why this was always a game where you could throw the records out is because the team that wasn't very good, usually UCLA, but not always. This game mattered. They were playing it against guys they knew, guys they didn't like, guys they had a history with, sometimes going back to when they were 13, 14 years old or even earlier. And it meant a great deal to the fans. I don't even know if there are any UCLA football fans anymore. I'm not convinced that there are any. So I do think it's changed, and frankly I miss it a little bit because there was something special about those games back in the day. I hope it comes back. For it to come back, USC is going to have to play better football consistently, and UCLA is going to have to do something, right? I mean, if they continue to be garbage, it's going to be hard to bring that game back. All right, so that brings us, I'll give you both a point. I'm generous here. All right, question number 6, an important question, and one that I think that maybe some academic papers should be written on, but we don't have time to do that. So just give me your off-the-cuff thoughts. Aren't Bruins embarrassed to be Bruins? Aren't they? Mark, what do you think?
If they're not, they should be.
Well, I know they should be, but I'm asking, are they embarrassed to be Bruins?
No, and I'll tell you what, I think there's just enough, they retain just enough hubris to think that they're good enough, that it's okay, that I can put on that color blue and walk around and people are going to respect me. It's almost that
Sounds
what was
delusional, Mark. That sounds delusional.
it's a Stuart Smalley type of experience. You look in the mirror, I'm good enough.
Smart enough, people like me. I could see that. I would, but I don't think Stuart Smalley was a big football fan. But if he rooted for a football team, it was UCLA. I think that's clear. Eric, what do you think? I mean, are Bruins embarrassed to be Bruins?
They have to be. I don't see any other reason why you'd go to a football game dressed as empty bench seating so that people couldn't recognize you.
Sometimes they go dressed as tarps.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I mean, the thing about it is that you're going to have a lot of, you can't grow up in Southern California and not know a lot of UCLA fans. And in most aspects of their life, they're decent people. That's what I found. And I know people argue with me, but it's true. In most aspects of their life, they're decent people. But if you have that one really bad, embarrassing habit, the thing, you really should try to hide it from people. I think you owe it. If there's something that you do that's kind of gross and inappropriate, you should hide it from the rest of the world. So I think UCLA fans should hide it, which is probably why none of them show up to the Rose Bowl anymore. So I think the answer is yes. I think they are embarrassed, as they should be. 4-3, Eric McKinney. All right, Eric, what worries you most about this game?
What worries me most is if Jaden Mayava's mistakes against Nebraska are more in this one and more significant to where the defense can't bail it out a little bit. We've talked a bit about how UCLA is going to play fired up in this one. If Mayava has those same sort of mistakes and the USC offense has those same sort of mistakes that we've seen all year, that's it. The free points for UCLA are a potential that is out there that could sort of spell disaster.
That seems like the right answer, Mark. What do you think?
Well, you're just going to give them the point? Is that what you're doing right now, Chris?
I mean,
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
You might have something better. I doubt it, but you might. I want to give you a shot.
So we've talked about it already throughout the shows. I think UCLA's run defense concerns me. You know, they can flex up enough to put the game on Jaden's shoulders, and then we have to be concerned, is Jaden going to play smart with the ball? Is he not going to try and do too much? So that concerns me. And then you guys scared the hell out of me earlier when you're talking about, you know, USC special teams giving up a blocked field goal. I don't know if I can finish this calendar year USC losing to UCLA because they had a extra point or a field goal miss or block.
Oh, yeah, don't even speak to, you know what?
Who brought it up?
I mean, I brought it up in a different context. I didn't bring it up as something that might happen this week. Eric gets a point. I'm really unhappy with that. All right, but I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself, Mark. What do you feel best about going into this one?
Ironically, USC's run game.
Okay.
Look, going to last week's game against Nebraska, that was a concern. Is USC going to be able to run the ball? And they stayed committed to it. And they showed, yeah, we can run the ball against a really good run defense. So if they bring that energy, they bring that attitude, like, you know what? Let's just go play a workmanlike game. Let's bring our lunch. Let's run the ball 40 times. Let's ask Jaden to throw the ball 20 times. That's my answer.
Okay, Eric. So Mark is most worried about USC's run game and most confident in USC's run game. What are you most confident in?
Jaden Mayava is going to make no mistakes at all. No, I'm most confident that UCLA's offense is not going to score more than 24 points in this game. They're not going to outscore the USC offense, provided the USC offense does not give them free points. That's it. UCLA's offense is not going to score enough to get this one done.
So I think Eric's answer is absolutely right, and I'm tempted to give him a point. The problem is Mark's answer was so out there because it directly contradicted his previous answer that just for boldness, I'm going to give Mark Culkin a point. Mark, I appreciate the boldness in doing what you just did, and I think everybody else does as well. That makes it 5-4. Will Jacoby Lane make an appearance this week? Eric McKinney?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. In the mix. I don't know if we can expect 10 catch, 108, 110 yards, whatever it was against Wisconsin. It just, you haven't seen a ton of that from any wide receiver, and Lincoln Riley sure feels comfortable that a solid offense is 6 catches for 50 yards for 4 different guys. But I think he'll play a bit. I'm certainly not going to go out and say, a touchdown or big catches or things like that. I think that connection with Mayav and Deuce Robinson maybe is a real one, and he grabs a bunch of reps here.
I'll say this, that I don't know why Nebraska decided just to let Deuce Robinson run down the field unmolested, but the speed he showed in defeating that angle that the defensive back had, when he caught that ball, you didn't think there was any reason at all he should score with it. And that guy didn't get anywhere near. Deuce Robinson can really run. I mean, his top end speed is impressive. Big dude, too. And he made a nice catch fighting for the ball, which I've been begging him to do all year. Who knows? Maybe Deuce is turning into the 5-star guy that everybody thought he would be. Mark Culkin, what do you think? Jacoby Lane going to make an appearance? What should we expect from him?
Oh, he made an appearance in the last game. It was a cameo appearance, but he did make an appearance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
he had as much impact on the game as I did, however. A real appearance where he does something. Are we going to see that from him this week?
I'm going to say yes, because the other side of the coin is, I don't want to go there right now. Yeah, I think he bounces back this week. I think he gets involved in the offense.
I'm going to make a prediction. I think Jacoby Lane will actually get a touchdown catch this week. I think he's going to have a big bounce back performance. Because of that, I don't like Eric McKinney's nonsense about, I'm not saying touchdown or big catches. I am saying that. So I'm saying that Mark gets a point. It's 5-5 going into the last question of the week. This is what everybody wants. It's a close, just like, Eric said earlier, never know exactly what you're going to get with USC. Yes, you do. You're going to get a game in the 20s that's very close going into the fourth quarter. You know that. And that's what we have today. I don't know which of you guys have a field goal kicker you trust, but we're going to find out right now. All right, here it is. Is this week's rivalry game more or less important than next week's? Mark?
So for all my friends in the press box who watch this show and understand how Chris judges this game, doesn't matter what answer I give right now. I think we know where it's going to go. Yes, this game means more than the Notre Dame game this year. This year, it means more. And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. How USC showed up last year against UCLA. They know that if they do not get win number 6 this week, they are really up against it the following week against Notre Dame. It doesn't matter if you're 6-6 or 7-5, you're still having a crappy year. You want to be bowl eligible. And I think they need to get that monkey off their back right now. I know Lincoln Riley says you don't get as much out of the practice sessions that you're supposed to with the bowl season. Nevertheless, this week means a lot this year. Other than that, it's always Notre Dame, then UCLA. But because of where USC's team is, as far as with its roster, what they're dealing with recruiting, trying to get bowl eligible, having Jaden Mayaba have a strong game in game number 2 opposed to game number 1, this week is the one that matters the most.
All right, Eric, he says UCLA number 1, Notre Dame number 2. What do you think?
I'm still trying to go through who Mark's friends are in the press box that he is talking about.
Come over and hand us our stat sheet.
All right. So if you had to give me one if I have to take one win and one loss in
Yep.
these two games, I'm gonna take Notre Dame as the win. I think a win against Notre Dame is far more positive than a loss against UCLA is a negative. Now, in terms of being important, oh my goodness, do you have to win this game? Do you have to win this game? And Mark's right, where that sort of in the hand thing of get to 6 wins right now, see what happens against Notre Dame, and if you play a good game with like a tight loss or whatever, you can still kind of spin that forward. I'm on board with that. But if I absolutely can only pick one win in these two games, I'm gonna beat Notre Dame at home, probably in front of a bunch of recruits, maybe not a ton of USC fans if you just lost to UCLA, but I think ending the year with that win at home to get to your 6, which again is not a great year, but the ability to maybe knock Notre Dame out of a playoff berth or at least make it shaky, that's the one I'll pick. And I feel like you're about to unleash that you tricked me into hoping that USC loses to UCLA this weekend, which now I'm realizing I just walked right into.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't trick people. I ask questions, you give answers, I judge them. Everybody in the country will be watching the USC Notre Dame game. Everybody will be. It's going to be an enormous, assuming Notre Dame beats Army, which they will, it's going to be a game of huge significance. It's going to be a game early in the day. The ratings will be off the charts. USC is going to have a huge number of recruits at that game. And USC Notre Dame is, in my humble opinion, the best rivalry game in college football, one of the best in all sports. That's the more important game of the two. I will give Mark this. Losing to UCLA, a lousy UCLA team this year when everything has gone wrong, is like rock bottom awful. Like hard to even imagine dealing with, to be honest. That being said, in 1996, a 5-5 USC team threw a game away against UCLA, right? They were up 17, I think, in the fourth quarter, gave the game away, then beat a top 10 Notre Dame team at the Coliseum to finish 6-6. The year was terrible, but that game was one of my favorite games of all time. I don't know that I'd be saying that if it was UCLA they beat. I remember the streak buster game against UCLA. It felt good. It was not the same as beating Notre Dame. Beating UCLA is never the same as beating Notre Dame. Eric McKinney, congratulations. Everybody knew I was going to go. Everybody knew it.
I called it.
Mark. And listen, all of you Mark Culkin fans who want to complain to me that I'm always cheating Mark, I just want you to remember this. Mark doesn't care if he wins or loses. He just wants to play the game. That's what we just saw. If he wanted to win, he would have said Notre Dame. He knew what I was going to say.
And now all of Mark's friends are my friends.
All of the
Sorry.
ones. Okay. Fellas, anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
WeAreSC.com right now for 7 days, $1. $1 for 7 days. Get there now through the UCLA game, bunch of Notre Dame things. Then that rolls over into 50% off for an annual membership. You'll love it.
That seems like a pretty good final word. All right, everybody. Enjoy the game Saturday, I hope. We'll see you next week. Fight on.